Fingernails. Ooh, I'm flicking my fingernails at the camera. I'm being very fingernaily for this review. I don't know what else to do. It's a weird name for film. So, it stars Jesse Buckley, Jeremy Allen White, and Riz Ahmed, and also Luke Wilson. But really, the first three and Luke Wilson. Also has Annie Murphy in this, by the way. I do like her enough to give her a shout out after her run on Schitt's Creek. So, not a star, but she's in this. She probably should be a star. We should probably work on that. Hollywood, that's a note for you guys. This is currently on Apple TV Plus with audio description. So if you're wondering, what are you getting for that pay bump? You're getting more movies like Fingernails. There you go. You're gonna start paying more for your Apple Plus, but hey, at least you get Fingernails. Wish I could just opt out of soccer and then maybe keep my original rate. I don't watch soccer on Apple Plus, so maybe they can just have soccer and I can pay less for Apple Plus. But anyway, yeah, so Fingernails is a film that's, I don't know if it's in the award season or not. No, probably not. I can't imagine this gets nominated anywhere. It's sort of an interesting, I would say, sci-fi leaning romantic drama. Jessie Buckley plays a woman who lives in a world where you can find out if you really are in love with somebody by having one of your fingernails ripped from your body. And then also the person that you think you might love also having one of their fingernails ripped from their body. Apparently the testing procedure requires a fingernail, and the procedure will let you know whether or not you two are a match or not. So she starts off the movie with Jeremy Allen White and feeling like she's, like, is this it? Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? And she ends up taking a job working for a company that gives people the opportunity to take these sort of like classes in advance to give them the best results possible of passing this test of are people really in love? Is this like, are they meant to be together type of thing or not? And so she goes to work at this institute. She originally does not tell her husband, and she just wants more. She wants more answers. She feels obviously empty in her life, and that's when Riz Ahmed comes into play, and he plays Amir, who also works at the facility. Also, Luke Wilson comes into play here as sort of like the head of the facility. And we learn, how this new technology came out like 3 years ago, and how many people have sort of like divorced or broken up because they didn't get a match. Apparently it's somewhat rare to get a match. And originally something like 83% of the people did not get matches. And I guess everybody broke up. Some people don't feel the need to get tested because they're going the old-fashioned way of just being like, I love you. I don't need to rip my fingernails out to prove that. So, yeah, it's kind of where we're at. As the film progresses, obviously Jessie Buckley starts developing like a connection with Riz Ahmed, which kind of throws things for a curveball. And then she starts wondering, who is she really in love with? Is she really in love with anybody, or is she lonely? What is it? What's going on with Jessie Buckley in this film? The film would have you believe that it's more of like a romantic comedy than that, or that it's funnier. It's not really that funny. It's actually kind of depressing, because I think it's really about a woman's obsession with finding the perfect match and using sort of this idea that there's a test out there that could answer all of her questions as being the excuse to be in her head about a lot of the choices that she's making, and instead of just confronting, as we would ourselves in our normal lives, possibly our unhappiness, and being willing to talk about maybe going to, couples counseling or something like that, and talking about the things that bother us in our relationships, she's just kind of, it's like, well, I passed the test, so I must be in love with him because the test can't be wrong. So I guess I'll learn more about this whole procedure by going to work there, and maybe that'll make me feel better about this choice that I've been told that I have to make. And then when she meets somebody else, she's like, wait a minute, can I be in love with two people at the same time? An interesting sort of predicament for people. I love the question that's asked in the film, and they just kind of let it drop because the film is so ridiculous. But somebody asked the question, what do you do when somebody has no arms? I mean, arms is just a stretch. Hands or fingernails. What happens if somebody tests 10 times and has no more fingernails left? No more testing? They ran out of time? They thought they were in love 10 different times and none of them were matches, so now they have no more nails to give up, so they just don't test and they live this weird single life. I mean, there's so many questions in this universe. I wish the film was done differently, because the film ends up really just feeling like Jessie Buckley's obsessed with test results, basically. She's obsessed with finding out why she's so unhappy when her test results tell her she should not be. And instead of being able to really explore the potential romantic angles between her relationships between these men, we kind of spend so much time talking about this world and this sci-fi concept that we have. Reminds me a little bit about downsizing. Downsizing was very high concept, and the characters sort of came along with it, instead of the characters being the forefront of the film. I kind of feel like that's what happens here, is that especially for Jeremy Allen White and for Riz Ahmed, I feel like they're both kind of pushed to the back a little bit in favor of us just embracing the quirkiness of this technology and what it's asking and how it's affecting the world. Instead of using it sort of as a catalyst to talk about relationships, we do spend far more time talking about the actual procedure and how this weird future that we live in operates using this test than we do actually really getting into the nitty-gritty with these characters and really sort of allowing us to see Jessie in her various environments with these two men. And I think the idea about, can you be in love with two people? Could you pass the same test with another man? Could she possibly say, have two positive test results with two different men, which the system says is impossible? I think that's an interesting predicament, but I don't think it needs any of the other stuff. It's sort of like you introduce the existence of this test and this technology. I don't know why she needs to work there. I didn't really pick up or gain anything from her working there, and I think it brings the film down because it puts too much of a strain on Jessie Buckley's ability to pull something from her character and to make the film not seem like this one person is so clinically obsessed with these test results. Instead of just answering the question herself by spending time with people, sort of like that we do in normal romantic comedies where there's just kind of like a love triangle. I think the plot of this film had an interesting concept where there's a way for you to test and get positive results in two people. But that's all it really needed to do, you know? She really just needed to meet somebody else who she, on the sly, gets tested with, and then finds out that she's now tested positive with two people. And her obsession with that could have happened without ever needing to go into the Institute, without us ever really needing to meet Luke Wilson. She could have met Riz Ahmed somewhere else in life. I don't know. It's just, this film really wants you to buy into this institute, this love institute, for lack of a better word. And I don't think that helped the film. I don't think that strengthened the film. I don't think that this film is quite as science fiction as it feels like it needs to be. And I think that's kind of what lets down the film. It didn't let the film and the characters breathe and grow. The film becomes kind of all about Jessie Buckley, while we don't really ever get to see Riz Ahmed or Jeremy Allen White grow as people. We don't really get to see what she likes about them or what she doesn't like about them, because they're all kind of the same people. Riz Ahmed plays a pretty flat character here. He's very polite, he's very nice, he's very genuine. But it's all within the confines of his work. So to be able to let his character sort of run free, if he had not been in this facility, if he had been somewhere else, if she had met him outside of this testing facility, I think their relationship would have been more interesting and it would have been stronger. Conceptually, I think there's something here. I just think they executed it poorly. So it's a very talented cast. It's actually a very promising cast. This is three people whose careers should all be exploding. Jessie Buckley is getting only bigger by the day. I'm so happy that Riz Ahmed is continuing to get work. I think he's a phenomenal actor. His performance in Sound of Metal absolutely deserved that Oscar nomination. It was my favorite performance from that year. It was the performance we weren't allowed to like because we had to be focusing on Chadwick Boseman and Marini's Black Bottom, but man, Riz Ahmed was fantastic in Sound of Metal. And then he later on was fantastic in a film that nobody talked about when he was playing a paranoid man that may or may not be seeing aliens. So, he's a very underrated actor, and I wish the film had given him more to do. Jeremy Allen White, I wish the film had given him more to do. Just like I kind of wish that on The Bear. Sometimes he has a lot to do. Sometimes the film, his series backs off and gives his supporting cast the light, and he kind of feels like he's just kind of hanging out in some of those episodes. So I did want more from his character as well, because he's kind of just like the character that feels like he's in the routine, right? It's not a very interesting character. He just like, yep, come home, we'll have dinner, we'll watch a little bit of TV, go to bed, maybe read a book before bed. This is his life forever. I just think he's more of a dynamic actor than this film allows him to be. And if the film was less caught up in the science fiction element of ripping out fingernails to test for love, I think we might have gotten a better exploration of these characters. Absolutely use that. I think there's a reason to use that, but instead of making the film feel like that's the core of the whole plot of the film, and making her work there so that we can learn more about this process, I think that was a mistake. I think just leave it a little bit more ambiguous, introduce the idea of it, and make sure we get wrapped up in the characters. I think that's part of the reason why people don't like Downsizing, is because it has an amazing winning concept. Just anybody who disagrees with me on that can, I don't know, fly kites off cliffs. But the concept is killer. Alexander Payne came up with a brilliant concept. But once you get into it, after a little while, you realize these characters are not really going anywhere, doing anything, or saying anything anymore. And it's all about the little quirks of being tiny. You know? It just doesn't really... You're like, oh, well, it's a gimmick movie at that point. And this really walks a fine line between being a gimmick movie and then also incorrectly being a movie about obsession. And one woman's obsession to get the perfect test results that define her life and relying way too heavily on those test results. So it doesn't quite land the way that I think it meant to. And that's why I mean, it is award season, so when films like this drop, it's valid to look at it and go, is this awards contender? I can't imagine this is an awards contender. I got nothing out of this. And I just saw 3 talented actors kind of being wasted. I should say 5, really, because Annie Murphy is not in a role suitable to her talents. And Luke Wilson really could have had better scenes, more to do. But in my version, he's really unnecessary. He's more like a cameo. He's more like a guy we see in one scene, and he gets to, like, sort of explain what this process is, maybe, and then we just don't see Luke Wilson again. It's like a cameo. And then the film becomes about the main trio and her wondering whether or not she could possibly test positive between 2 men. And what do you do with that information? So, yeah, I think that should have been more about that and less about what it is about. But we get what we get. So the narration, I believe, was done by Laura Post. I don't know, it tried to push me into like a trailer for something else. I hate this thing, that these things that don't let us watch credits anymore. They're just like, why? But I do believe I recognize that voice. I do believe it's Laura Post. And yeah, I mean, it's solid audio description. There are a whole bunch of random moments that are sort of interesting that I like throughout the thing. Obviously, ripping out fingernails happens on screen. It doesn't all happen off screen. You have to go through at least one of those, you know, to really fully capture the idea that these people are having their fingernails ripped out to find out whether or not they're in love with somebody, and how ridiculous that is. And just like little silly things too. There's a moment where Luke Wilson, she comes in and we're told that he's playing with like these little 2 astronaut action figures. She asks him what's up, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, don't mind me. My son was playing with these the other day, and he's making them fly, trying to make them kiss." He doesn't really go anywhere with that, you know? I mean, out of that conversation, we learned that he divorced his wife after they got a negative test. But what the fuck is he playing with the astronauts for? He's like, I was so fascinated. I stole these toys from my kid so I could float them around at work and pretend to make them kiss. You know, like, what? Like, what, can we go back to that? Can we, why is that there? There are so many other ways that you could have had Luke Wilson casually mentioned into a conversation his character's divorced. So many other ways. That is such a random way. And I'm so glad it was there, because I wouldn't have been able to see him playing with those astronaut action figures. So I'm glad that we brought that up, because I was just like, what? Like, I can't. Literally, just sometimes with this film. Yeah, so it is what it is. Yeah, there are plenty of times in the film where, you know, just like kind of like little glances, you know, between, because this film never can really fully commit to the idea of Jessie Buckley and Riz Ahmed exploring a relationship, so it's a lot of like glances little smirks and smiles. And then when somebody turns away, then you're not smiling anymore. It's just very. I can't really fully embrace the concept of telling you should watch Fingernails. I think there's some interesting stuff here, and it's got, my God, some talented actors. It's got, like I said, it's got 2 Oscar nominees out of the 3 leads. So realistically, it would have been nice if one day if we can say that about Jeremy Allen White, and honestly Luke Wilson. I feel like Luke Wilson has come close by being in some films. I don't know if he will ever get there, but I wouldn't mind it. I'm not mad. I think he's a very talented actor. So, but this film just doesn't work the way it is in its current state. This film needed to be sent back for a rewrite. This film needed a little bit something different. I don't think that the way that the director wants us to understand the film is necessarily the way that you will end up perceiving the film. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. If you ended up watching this and you got wrapped up in the emotion, drama, and all that kind of stuff, let me know. But if you just thought this film was about Jessie Buckley being overly obsessed about getting test results to define her life and going to the extreme way of actually trying to work behind the scenes to really get to know the procedure, then I feel like we had a missed opportunity. So it's a little bit of a letdown, but I'm going to give Fingernails a C-. This is more of a thumbs down. This is a rotten for me. This is not a fresh on the tomato meter. This is a rotten. So, and I'm as surprised as you were by that, because, like I said, talented actors. I don't know what they're doing in this film. I don't know what this film is doing to them. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. If you saw Fingernails, I'd be interested to see what you think. And you can please click that subscribe button. I'm so close to breaking my goal of 200 for the year. Just need a few more. You can go to my website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can follow me on X, Threads, or Instagram at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what is audio description, where you can watch it. And you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. It'll let you know who's narrating your favorite films and television series. That's it. I will watch something else and see you guys on the other side.